William Invest 11/05/2024. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about a couple of scary stories. I hope you enjoy it and let's dive into the first one straight away. There's one day that splits my past into two. July 17, 2005, there was my life before July 17 and my life after. Every year since, I've dreaded the day and I'm plagued with nightmares. During the week leading up to it, on the actual day, I usually either get drunk or smoke with my neighbor in an attempt to block out any traumatic flashbacks that try to creep back in. Hopefully, writing it out, the events of that day will help me conquer the hold it has over me. But I've got to share with y'all the events leading up to the memento day. The welcome party for the three families happened to align perfectly with the 4th of July. Since this was the first one in 10 years, the town council decided to add an extra day to the 4th fest by making the welcome party that Sunday, July 7th, to close out the weekend. My mother was a stern woman and I wasn't allowed to ask for much, but something she would never turn down was the opportunity to buy me new clothes. If I wasn't well dressed, she wouldn't claim me. She said I was an extension of her, and if I dared going out of the house in simple clothes, as she would call them, I'll be dragged by my hair back to my room to change. The morning of July 2nd, I went down the stairs early, hair and outfit already done, up and ready. I sat at the kitchen table and as I was pouring a glass of orange juice, my mother noticed my outfit. With her eyebrows raised, she said, "Well, don't you look daring? Going out today?" I smiled at the compliment, which was rarity, and replied, "Well, I was hoping that we could go shop for some new outfits for this weekend. I assumed you wanted us all to look our best when meeting three new families." My sentence was cut short by my mother squealing with excitement. "Oh, yes, give me a moment to put my shopping shoes on and touch up my hair." She giggled as she cleaned the kitchen and ran frantically to her room. My mom and I were never close, but some of my best memories with her are when we would go downtown and shop. My mother had an eye for fashion, and if she hadn't been bound to her hometown, she probably could have gone on to be a very successful. She kept fashion magazines in all the bathrooms and on the coffee tables. She just had a talent for pulling random things out of her closet and creating a stunning, classy outfit for any and every event. During the short car ride, my usually quiet mother chatted non-stop about some shoes she had seen in the window of her favorite boutique and how I would look just darling in the Lily Pulitzer dress that was on sale for half off. I didn't mind my mom dressing me, though I was 15 and it was getting harder to dress appropriately with my growing body. I loved the flouncy dresses and hand-stitched skirts my mom would put on me. I felt prettiest in a dress and I simply didn't look good in the low-rise, bedazzled jeans girls from school would wear. I never thought I looked young in ruffled socks and Mary jeans. I saw it as put together. That didn't stop the sneakers and backhanded compliments from the low rise jean girls, but since most of the school dressed it like me and I went to my church, they didn't really have a leg to stand on. My mother cut the engine and immediately jumped out of the car and began fixing her makeup in the side view mirror of the 2003 Lincoln my grandfather had left her. The car still smelled like cigarettes and the small pine flavored smelly trees that were littered across the dashboard. My mom had barely gone shopping since he passed the Christmas before. But the summer air and the exciting upcoming festival revitalized the spark together. My mom and I walked up to the main street and started our shopping spree. Now, this is where the story ends. This is a story written by a girl about her life in the mid 2000s, early 2000s with her mother. Life back then was very, very different from what it is right now. She's basically explaining how she actually had a trauma. That's why one of her days, this particular day when she went shopping with her mom for a outfit for the 4th of July, which was actually split in two parts to meet the three new families. We'll be reading the next part in the next video, but what I want you to get out of this particular one is this is a basic setup, okay? So this is a basic setup for you to understand, first and foremost, who the main character is, which is the girl, who is telling her story. And she went into a little bit more detailed on her life. So she's apparently 15, she's in school, her body is growing, her mother wants to dress her well. Her mother is a little bit of a stubborn person and likes to have everything done in her own way. And this girl is basically explaining her side of the story. Basically, summarization of this particular chapter is that she's talking about a day that was split in two. Basically, she means that something happened on that day when they were supposed to meet the three families on 4th of July. The setup is that currently she woke up in this day, 3rd of July, she woke up, she got dressed, she put her outfit and she looked great apparently. And she went downstairs, she spoke with her mom, asked her mom to go out shopping again for new outfits for the new families. Her mom got excited, got upstairs, got dressed, got into the car and took her out shopping. So we just have arrived at the stores and the story will continue in just the next video. William Invest, 11/05/2024. The shadow. The shadow is lingering in the corner again. It should be gone by now. It should have been gone a long time ago. Yet, there it is. In its presence, I can only exist with trepidation, uneasy and restless. I circumvent its aura each time I must cross it. I am unable to focus on anything else, picking up every few seconds to see if it's still there. It always is. But the thought of it not being there when I look up unsettles me to the point of obsession. Should its arm shift or shape, obstruct? Who knows what would happen? Did it move? I can never tell, but I'm certain that, even if it had, I would convince myself otherwise. When the farce of my daily activities concludes, I am forced to go to bed to complete the ruse. Should you know that I have noticed its presence, a fear that will make matters worse. Perhaps then it may have to act, become malignant. I can't risk it, so I lie in my bed, my blanket covering every inch of my body. Sweat breathes down my face, and expired breath fills my lungs. I consider lifting the blanket slightly to breathe, but I fear it will be waiting for me at the edge of my bed, that it will be looking back at me, amused. I know this does nothing, but I can't think of anything else to do. If I speak of it to anyone else, I will surely be laughed at and ostracized. Should I attempt to manage it myself, I am certain I'd face a fate worse than death. I can only hide, only act as if nothing is happening, so as to not trigger it. To tune out my drumming pulse, I imagine scenarios. Once where I run into the corner sacrificially and I was just a trick of the light. That if I were to move the coat rack a few feet to the left, it will be gone. Or that I will extrapolate to some mysterious explanation one night and banish it. Or that I will combust and scream at it to kill me, and it will swiftly oblige relinquishing me of this dilemma. These do not settle me though, as my thoughts are constantly interrupted. A creak, a step, a whistle, a whisper. I know it's there. It could be right next to me. It takes me an hour to finish one scenario, and it's a daylight before my hyperventilation faints. Not because I'm not afraid, not because I have some kind of solution, but because my lungs have exhausted themselves. I wake up to my alarm, seemingly minutes after I've finally fallen asleep. I consider calling it out of work, but I've done that too many times at this point. I sit for a while as my alarm goes off. I have to emerge from the safety of my blanket to turn it off. But the sound could drown out whatever it may be doing. I sit up abruptly to catch it off guard, but it isn't there. It must still be in the corner, or perhaps it ducked out because of the alarm. Sometimes I like to imagine that it's being just something lost and harmless, but I'm certain it isn't. I would be foolish to convince myself otherwise. It would not sit there ominously if it were. It would not be shaped so amorphously. It's not humanoid, but not the antitheist either. It's something unnatural, human like, but unrecognizable. Part of my fear of its action is that it may repulse me more than its stillness, that it may move with such distinction, such clumsy and jagged spittle, in a way so inarticulably foreign that its horror would permeate me permanently. I silenced the alarm, tiptoed to my bathroom, and locked the door. I turn on the shower, but I do not get in. I don't shower at home anymore. I let the water run and sit on the toilet seat, staring at the door, without breaking eye contact. I reach over and equip a toothbrush with toothpaste and brush my teeth. Still staring and rinse off my toothbrush, I turn off the shower and have to check myself before I leave. I hate this part. However, if I were to show up with something obviously messy about me, I'd face the same issue as I would with calling out. So, I, as quickly as possible, with my hand pressing the door shut for insurance, flip my head to the mirror and back in 1 second. I have that second to work with, try to mediate on the mental image to determine what must be fixed. I readjust my hair a bit and wipe the crust from my eyes. I continue quietly on my toes, out the bathroom and out of my room. I move so slowly and meticulously that my muscles shake as they're tensely adjusted. My eyes burn from not blinking, but I know the moment I do, I am dead. My head peeks out past my doorway. Should anyone look down the hallway now, they would see just the wet of my eyes and the hair above them creeping around the corner. The hallway on each end of me chilled my spine as I waited to see which end it would be waiting for me at. Creeping further, I round the corner to my kitchen and living room. I see it there. I don't dare look at it directly, so I peer ever so slightly past the doorway. It always seems as though it has shifted, but not in a way in which I can understand why or in what way worse. The longer I stare, the more it seems to twitch in the darkness. Though I know the dark static of its shape could be playing tricks on me. I hold my breath and pinch myself in order to approach the kitchen, feigning ignorance. I have never once turned my back on it, always keeping it in the corner of my eye. This is a very deep story about a person describing a shadow figure living with them in their room. This is more of a poem written by a writer. William Invest, 11/05/2024. Story Night Shift by John Westrick. I worked the night shift at a local mom and pop convenience store at the front of my neighborhood. We sell snacks, drinks, milk, bread, all the normal stuff that people need but aren't willing to make a traditional run to the grocery stores for. There was a talk about adding a gas pump out front, but it hasn't happened yet. As a result, the night gets a bit slow at times. Of course, we got our usual druggies who strolls in to get his soda or to use the restroom, but sometimes I'll sit at the counter for nearly an hour before someone strolls in. It can get a bit boring at times, but I've always got a good book or YouTube video to keep my mind occupied. I'm supposed to clean the store in the slow periods of my shift, and I do, but that never takes me long. Each night, usually around 1, 2 a.m., I finish the chore list and find myself suffering the web or plopped down enjoying some novel. The night of the encounter was like any other day. It had happened slow. The store was quiet. No one had come in for an hour. I was rereading my favorite Stephen King book when I heard a thudding sound coming from the inventory room. I jumped at the noise. I know, not very manly for me, but I hadn't expected it. Besides, I was at a pretty intense part of my book. I looked up at the digital clock sitting on the counter. It read 3:12 a.m. I didn't really think anything of the noise. I just assumed it was something that fell off one of the shelves. Even still, I felt a chill crawl its way down my spine. I remember glancing outside and seeing a sea of thick fog blanketing the landscape. This wasn't too uncommon. There was a lake across the street from the store, and occasionally fog would drift in. Still, I couldn't recall a time when the fog was quite as thick as this. I remember thinking that something could be standing out there watching me, and I wouldn't even know. But it was more than that. At that moment, I knew there was something out there. It was instinctual, a primal sense developed over years. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and goose flesh began to break out of all my arms. I was too frightened to get up from my spot at the cash register. I knew that I ought to investigate. The sound in the back room, but I couldn't get my body to respond. I sat there, unable to look away from the glass front door, trying desperately to peer through the ticking fog. I couldn't see anything, but I was certain that if I turned away now, then the thing in the dark would rush forward. The fear was multiplying, growing into a living creature trying to tear its way from my stomach. I felt cold sweating begin to pour from my brow, streaming into my open eyes and causing them to sting. I couldn't blink. I was too worried about consequences if I didn't when I saw it. 2 pinpricks of a light cut through the dense fog temporarily, blinding me. My panic rose to a crescendo and my heart beat out of my chest. I half ducked behind the counter when I saw the figure approaching the door. My hand slid across the underside of the counter to find the panic button that will lure the police when the door swung wide open. A burly man in a green jacket and black pants came strolling in, an amused look on his face. He looked at me, raised an eyebrow, and said, "Hey, mister, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I sighed and felt the physical weight lift off me. I looked at him and said, "Yeah, sorry, man. You just stared at me. Couldn't see you approach the door until you opened it with all that fog out there." "Hey, I hear you there." I could hardly see the road in front of me. "Honestly, it's a bit unnerving out there. It makes you think some strange thoughts," said the man, looking a bit pensive. "Right, I could have sworn that someone was out there. I mean, I guess you were," I said with a nervous laugh. "Yeah, I was. It's nights like this that makes one think," said the man seriously. I felt uncomfortable with his answer. He just remained there motionless, staring at the door to the back room. I still hadn't investigated the noise in the back, and the man's blank look made me feel uneasy. The silence in the room was beginning to weigh on me, and I couldn't take one more moment of it. I asked, "Think about what?" The man smiled a deadly grin and said, "Life, death, and all the moments in between." I try not to think about the first two too often. After all, who can truly know? Anyone can, if they're willing to pay the right price for it, said the man, a hungry look gleaming in his eyes. You might be right. There's always a price to pay for knowledge. I mean, I'm pretty sure Adam and Eve learned that lesson, and aren't we still paying for it today? True enough, I supposed. But how is one supposed to live when one doesn't know the reason for existence? Asked the man. I guess it is our duty to do the best with what we have in front of us. And then, the truth, huh? Replied the man. What truth? No one's truth is true. Many claim to have the answers, but few have more than just hot breath. Because many are liars. The truth doesn't exist. That doesn't seem to be an accurate conclusion either, said the man. Does there have to be singular truth? Why must it be universal? Can something be true to one and not true for another? I guess we're gonna pause this here, and we're gonna continue with the convenience store story in the next video. It's quite intense, and I quite like it, and I hope you do as well. It basically summers up a story of a clerk in a 24/7 store, and one night a mysterious man comes in and they have a weird conversation. So, I'll see you in the next one. William Invest, 11/05/2024. Well, I welcome you back, guys. And I'd like to begin the part 2 of Night in Convenience Store story. So let's quickly summarize what happened so far. The story is being told from the point of the clerk that works on that store at that night. He talked a little bit about himself. He basically works only the night shift. He spends most of his time at night watching some interesting YouTube videos or reading a book. And one mysterious night he was there. Suddenly at exactly 3:12 a.m. he heard a noise in the inventory room, like something falling, and then he kind of got scared, I would say. And then afterwards, a very, very thick fog just covered the whole street in front of the store. He couldn't see anything in that fog, but he said that this is something usual because there's a lake near the store. Now, suddenly, his primal state kicked in, and from the fog emerged a person who basically came into the store and started having a weird conversation with him about life, death, Adam and Eve, and what they have done. We are very, very interesting part in the story, so I don't want to take any more time. Let's jump back in and let's finish this story today. I would say that truth, by its essence, must be true to all, or else it isn't the truth. A truth true to you but not another is not the truth at all. It's merely a solution. Are you content to live a life of solution rather than one of true knowledge? Asked the man. The question is superfluous. Of course, I'd rather live a life of universal knowledge, but who knows such truth? And if I claimed to know the truth, what would you say to that? Questioned the man, the mysterious figure. The clerk. I'd say you're either insane or a liar. Honest enough answer, but I am neither. I am something more. When one sees the truth, they know it. So look and see for yourself, said the mysterious man. He took a couple of steps forward, coming fully into the light, and I noticed his features for the first time. He had a severe look, a hawkish nose, that looked as if it had been broken at least once. The landscape of his face was a jumble of cracks and wrinkles, dominated by a large scar that started right below his nose and continued through his lip, stopping at his jawline. It was the man's eyes that made me feel the most uneasy. They were as black as tar, and they drilled into me. Making eye contact with the man was like looking directly into a black hole. They seemed to draw you deeper. There was a little light shining in the middle of the man's pupil. I watched as it bounced and glowed, coming closer then drawing away. It was as if it was beckoning me to follow. When I saw that gleam, I wanted nothing more than to follow it, and then the consequences. There was a beauty to the way it pulsated that held me captivated. I looked and I saw and knew that there were secrets to be found in those depths. I also knew that if I followed the light, there would be no coming back. But I didn't care. I just wanted to know. I wanted to see. The mysteries of the universe were held in the gyrating light bobbing in the abyss. I felt my soul beginning to be ripped from my body, torn from my essence, and sent spiraling down that back tunnel towards that brilliant light. It was that same crushing sound I had heard from the back room that broke the trance. I looked away from those eyes and I came smashing back to reality. My mind was scrambled, and it took me a second to get back into a normal state. The creature standing before me was just as confused as I was, clearly not used to its prey escaping it so easily. For a moment, we looked at each other in utter shock. The man smiled at me, showing ragged pointed teeth. I looked away in disgust, trying to feel for the silent alarm button on the bottom of the counter. My hand brushed the button, and I pressed it with all my strength. The man remained standing there, absolutely motionless. He could have been a statue for all I knew. He didn't breathe, nor did his heart beat. Those black eyes never blinked, and I didn't dare make eye contact with him again. Finally, he looked down at his watch and said, "The time is nearly here." With that, the man turned and strode directly out the door he had come. I watched him casually walk away into the fog. I couldn't see clearly, so I'm not entirely sure what I saw, but still, the figure almost seems to melt as if it was evaporating into the mist. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. To this day, I still don't know what I saw that night. I do know this. There are things that walk in the dark that man knows nothing about. It's best to avoid certain watches of the night. I stay at home those days. I work in the safety of the daylight. Once I tried to watch the security footage. All that can be seen is the front door opening and closing. Then about 5 minutes later it happens again. No man can be seen. But still, something opened that door. You can see my lips moving as if I am talking, but there is no audio, and the conversation cannot be heard. And that's the proof. I tried to watch the backroom footage. All that can be seen is a box of sodas bursting as it falls from the top shelf. Then a few more minutes pass and the whole metal rack holding the boxes of soda is knocked over. I do not know what saved my life. I do know this. I am still alive and I intend on staying that way. I like to be able to explain to you what happened that night, but I'm just as into dark as you might be. Stories are supposed to wrap up nice and neat into a perfect tight little ribbon. But when does life follow those rules? We each live and die on this rock. We love, we hate, we fight, we make peace. And many of us don't even know why we are here. I don't claim to know the answers. All I know is this: I am still breathing, and some answers aren't worth the price. William Invest, 11/05/2024. Today, we're going to be talking about a story called The Lady in the Basement. It's a quite interesting story, I would say, and it has a really, really exciting ending. I definitely advise everyone to stick around and hear the story out. If you want to check it for yourself, you can go ahead and check it on Reddit, just our scary stories, and you can even talk to the writer there as well. It's quite interesting. So, without any further ado, let's quickly jump in and hear the story of the lady in the basement. The lady in the basement. I was the one who found Jake dead, tucked in the dark corner of the parking garage in his idling pest control truck that vibrated immediately. The parking garage always had a humming from stainless metal fans to circulate the humid and hot Virginia air. Walking closer to the truck, I saw his chemical box in the bed of the truck was open, with the top flap sticking straight up. I thought nothing weird about it. The open box, because it's not just us in the pest control company that lives there, and from time to time we steal from other trucks. For the summer, the company buys out dozens of rooms for the employees to stay. Most employees are door to door salesmen who make a living selling pest control as a same day service. Where Jake and I, with a few others, come into play is after the sale. The ones who actually spray your house, the ones who interact with the customer and bring them down to reality after the salesman fluff out our feathers. Or are they fluffing their own? We're the ones who click the wrap, trap mounts in place with black jagged teeth, waiting with the delicious neon blue food for the rats to nibble on and share with their newborns. We had 7 other trucks in the parking garage, and from time to time, Cam went missing. Sometimes us, technicians, didn't want to wake up early and drive 30 minutes to the office to pick up materials. Truckers were closer, much closer. I'd be lying to you if I didn't steal a D Weber now and then off a truck, but I always made no trace of the thievery. I can't speak for everyone though, so when that lid was pointing up to the rusty pipes and concertina ceiling above, I wasn't surprised. I haven't had smirk on my face. With the swing of my arm, I slapped the box closed. A whiff of chemical spouted out and hit my nose, which gave me a feeling of a stinging sneeze that never comes. I gave the window a knock to see if he would turn around. Silence. Got closer to see if he was glued to his phone and didn't hear me or didn't bother looking. I put my hands up on the window and smooshed my eyebrows against my index finger to get a better look. I saw the seat was fully reclined back, him laying there, still as a morning lake. I knocked on the smaller back half door, tap, tap, tap. No movement. It was too dark to see, so I dug my hand in my pocket to get my phone light out and put a flush to the back oval airplane shaped window. That's when I saw his face. God, his face. Skin, a purplish hue, and pulled through by swelling eyes and a drift and red which were bulging out like the wanted to leave. Jaw open with dark fluids sitting in his mouth, escaping on the side. The streaks of the dark liquid rolled down his purple face, curving down the back of his neck and dribbling down the strands of hair, meeting the headrest. My eyelids opened so wide they touched my eyebrows. His fingers curled limply around a chemical bottle, cap off, and the liquid color matching that of the pool in his mouth. Jake, I whispered. My voice felt like it was stolen from me, my skin tingling like an unknown channel on TV. As heat takes over, I begin to fall. The last thing I notice are my fingers streaking down the window. Passed out. 4 months have passed. I'm moving out of the building where it happened. I've wanted to get out of this building since it happened, but didn't have the financial backing. Now, I plan to stay in Virginia for the winter and move in with roommates from the pest control company. The salesmen call this time their off season due to them all leaving and going back home, most to Vegas. My other two roommates run the regular technical routes, which consist of stopping at 14, 15 designed houses a day, spraying chemicals and setting traps to take care of the contracts those dreamy salesmen sell. I used to share a room with Jake. All of his things were taken out either by investigators or the maid service. The other roommates in the building told me to combine the abandoned twin bed with mine, but I never touched it. I couldn't. I'm making this entry due to finding something I believe was very close to Jake. The last day of moving, I had everything packed but my mattress and box spring. While moving my mattress, lastly, with the sheet still on, I lost grip and it hits his mattress, sliding it off the box spring and hitting the wall. I let go of my mattress automatically and wanted to fix his bed, preserve it. I wrapped my hands around his mattress when a wave of dizziness veiled over me. My hands became clammy and I didn't want to touch his mattress anymore, like a kid that doesn't want to touch an old person. I had to put it back. If I didn't, it would haunt me forever in my mind. Just as I forced myself to slide the mattress back, my middle knuckle dropped into a slight groove and I stopped in place. I pushed the mattress to the right and traced where my knuckle had been, and I found a slit in the box spring. I hesitated, staring at the unnatural slash in the cloth, thinking about when Jake and I would make fun of our manager, which always had a bone to pick with Jake ever since the first day they met. The new manager, 2 years younger than us, yelling at Jake to tuck his shirt in while his own untucked covered his belt and belly. William Invest, 11/05/2024. Today, we're going to be reading a story called The Mirror. I'm not even going to give you a description, let's just jump in. The Mirror. Have you ever heard of the Mirror game? Picture this. Tucked away in the dark corners of online forums and whispered conversations, there is a story that sends chills down the spines of those who hear it. It's the legend of the Mirror game, a spine-tingling ritual that folks talk about in hushed tones, claiming they've come face to face with its dark mysteries. So here's the problem. The Mirror game ain't no walk in the park. It all kicks off innocently enough with a regular old mirror. But what follows in is anything but ordinary. If you're brave or foolish enough to give it a shot, you'll need 4 sleeping pills apparently. They're key to the weird stuff that happened next. Once you're all set, it's time to dive in. You start by whispering some ancient words, the kind that make the hair on the back of your neck stands up. They say these words wake up the mirror version of you, bringing it to life in a seriously spooky way. At first, it's subtle. A flicker here, a shadow there. But as the game goes on, things start to get real creepy. The reflection in the mirror starts acting like it's got a mind of its own, giving you these bone-chilling smiles and gestures that feel way too real. But hold on a crucifix, because the mirror game isn't all fun and games. The deeper you get, the scarier it gets. Some say the thing in the mirror starts getting downright nasty, like it's trying to trap you in its world. And let me tell you, the folks who've been there and back, they've got stories that will make your hair stand on end. If you're smart, you will steer clear of this one. But if you're feeling brave, just remember, once you're in, it's tough to get out. And even if you do manage to escape, you'll never look at the mirror the same way again. Here's one story of a teenager who played the mirror game. Yes, it's real, and it's not very popular yet. But it can be proven to play it yourself. But I beg you, don't do it. I'm not gonna explain all the steps for people's safety, but I'll mention a little. In the shadows of an old church, hidden away in a forgotten storage room, a teenage boy stumbled upon an ancient tome that would change his life forever. The weathered pages were adorned with strange symbols and cryptic writings, most of which were in language he couldn't decipher. But amidst the Latin passages, he found one page written in English, a page that would lead him down a path of darkness and despair. It was February 20th, 1967, when the boy and his 3 friends gathered in his attic, drawn together by the promise of forbidden knowledge. With trembling hands, he recited the incantation from the book, each word sending shivers down his spine. As the final syllable fell from his lips, A harsh silence enveloped the room, broken only by the faint sound of his racing heart. Following the instructions laid out in the ancient tome, they positioned two mirrors opposite each other, their reflective surfaces poised to capture the unseen. With bated breath, they waited, watching for any sign of movement in the mirror images that surrounded them. And then it happened. A subtle shift, a barely perceptible movement that sent a chill coursing through their vein. One of the reflection moved, its head tilted ever so slightly in response to the boy's invocation. In that moment, the air grew heavy with an unworldly presence, and the boy knew that they had awoken something beyond their understanding. What followed was a descent into madness, a nightmare from which there was no walking. The once bright-eyed teenager became consumed by darkness, haunted by visions that tore at his sanity. His friends, too, were not spared from the horrors unleashed by their reckless curiosity. In the end, the boy's mind could no longer bear the weight of the secrets he had unearthed. In a moment of desperation and despair, he took his own life, leaving behind only a journal detailing the horrors he had witnessed and a warning to those who dared to follow in his footsteps. And so, the tale of the mirror game became cautionary legend, whispered about in hushed tones by those who knew of its dangers. For in the shadows of the unknown, there are forces beyond our comprehensions, forces that should never be disturbed. The point of the game is to try and survive until it becomes less hostile and turn back to normal. And that's how you know you survived. Sometimes it can trick you into thinking it's back to normal to get you let your guard down. It's very dangerous, okay? And they do have the power to switch places with you. But I cannot help but wonder how many others fell victim to this. The only way you will know if you see how they're acting. You will know because they're not acting like themselves. Perhaps if you pay close attention, you will see they are imposters. Here's some Google search results about the mirrors. What happens when you stare at yourself in the mirror for too long? In normal observers, gazing at one's own face in the mirror for a few minutes at a low illumination level produces the apparition of strange faces. Observers see distortions of their own faces, but they often see hallucinations like monsters, archetypical faces of relatives and descended and animals. Now, let's quickly get this over with. So, practically, this is just a scary story. I personally haven't tried this, and I do not suggest anyone else try this because our minds tend to play games with us from time to time. So depending, as it's mentioned from the Google search result, depending on the illumination that you're having while you're looking yourself long enough in the mirror, you may see this and that. Now, of course, that's due to how our mind and how our vision works, as the low illumination can cause hallucinations, even in any factors, not even if just looking at a mirror, but even if you're just in a dark room and there's only slight bit of lighting there, this can cause you to hallucinate as well. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying it's true. I say that maybe we should not meddle with forces we cannot understand.